Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is David Novak. Vin at Revenant Reads has just published the announcement for Historathon 2024, a year-long booktube event designed to encourage people to read history. The year is split up into 4 periods of 3 months each covering a different period of time. And to get more clarity on what it entails, I will put a link to Vin's announcement video in the description. The basic participation is to read one book for each of the 4 periods. Last year, during Historathon 2023, I was an imperfect participant. I began, I believe, participating in the first quarter, which is not really so outside of my wheelhouse anyhow. And then I think I skipped, and then I think I just by chance coincided with another one. It might have been the third month, but I'm not totally sure. But this year I'm going to try to do a better job of syncing some of my reading with the event. And I thought that I would show you the 2 books that I am slotting to read for the first quarter of Historathon. Years ago, many years ago, I had bought a book about the Hittites by A.R. Gurney. It was a Penguin classic with, well, not a classic. It was a Penguin with a red cover. And I tried reading it, and I just could not get anything out of it. And that book was reproduced in a Folio Society edition, and I decided to get it. And I've had it sitting on my shelf for at least a year now, and I've decided I am going to try to take a stab at it. Now, I think the Hittites may be what is referred to now as the Near East. I know absolutely nothing of any of this history, and I understand this may be a little bit outdated and there are better options subsequent to this. But because this is an item of unfinished business, I feel like going back and really giving this a good try, and possibly in the future I can read something more current. So that's one item. Probably before that, though, I will read this. Now, the first quarter, I believe, is from prehistory through the year 500, and so I'm quite confident that this will fit the bill. The author, Charles Freeman, wrote a general history, which I will show you, Egypt, Greece, and Rome, which I first heard about on the channel of Michael K. Vaughan. He recommended it highly, and I decided to give it a try, and I recommend this highly. So if you've never read much history, or even if you had and you're looking for an overview and a synthesis of these major periods, it is something very, very much to be recommended. I think this is the first edition, and I believe Freeman, there's a second edition and more recently a third edition, and I believe Freeman has expanded upon Egypt and the Near East. And if I read this again, and I hope to one day, I will most definitely get a copy of the third edition, because I believe he probably improved the book. The reason I opted for the first edition last year, I think it was, that I read this, was because this was available for something like $4 with free shipping. And the third edition is something like $30 or whatnot with shipping. So at any rate, my participation in first quarter Historathon hopefully will be those two books. Now, I thought I would show you some other recommendations. Oh, well, I didn't really pick out much. You often hear me talk about Moses Finley on this channel, and so I thought I would just pass out a couple of recommendations. This was a groundbreaking book. It really changed the field altogether. Let's see what I can. I'll read the back. Who was Homer? When were the Iliad and the Odyssey composed? When and why did the Trojan War occur? Spoiler here, there's no real evidence that there ever was such a war. What sort of society did Odysseus, Achilles, Helen, Hector, and Priam live in? What were their beliefs about government, religion, class, and sex? The distinguished historian M.I. Finley answers such questions with his renowned lucidity and draws our attention to many newly fascinating aspects of this perennially fresh subject. In revising and updating a book that for more than 2 decades has been acclaimed as a central and important landmark in the modern study of ancient Greece, he has suggested the ways in which recent scholarship and archaeology have vindicated the controversial theses he advanced so brilliantly in the first edition. He has incorporated the new information and fresh perceptions that have emerged from what he calls the notoriously unmanageable quantity of Homeric scholarship, and in 2 new appendices, he discusses the problems inherent in any attempt to use Greek myths, oral traditions, and the Homeric poems in a historical reconstruction. So this is the edition which I originally read, and it has subsequently been reprinted with a fresh edition, and I think that you would want to get probably one of the later reprintings that you could. I don't believe this is the only one. Let's see when this one came out with the introduction by Bernard Knox. Oh, this is still rather old. So this is the introduction is most recently copyrighted 2002 by Bernard Knox. I think there's something more recent than that, and if you're really intrigued, you can find it in a Folio Society edition. I just happened across these in a half-price books, and I think they were like $12. There were two editions of it, and I bought one. And because I love Finley so much, you can see the nice illustrations in here. But it's a really good way of looking at the world out of which the Homeric poems arose. So I would highly recommend that. And then as just another Finley option for you, I would recommend, if you're interested in ancient slavery, this is really the place to start. Anybody who talks about slavery has to make mention of this. So I will leave that there. My plans for the first quarter, and then just a couple of suggestions for you, books written by my most beloved Moses Finley. I will put a link to Vin's announcement video in the description, and I suppose other hosts will be posting their own videos with possible suggestions as well. Thank you much for stopping by my channel.